broken boys become broken men. That's for all. White men, wealthy men, poor men. Don't care what's your demographic or what side of the fence you live on. I don't give you the CEO or whatever. Your son, if trauma has taken place and if it's not navigated or handled correctly, that trauma goes from that boy to eventually him becoming a man if it's not properly processed. What up? What up? What up? We are back again on a Father's Heart podcast with your boys Shon and Cole and George.
What's up?
Welcome, good people. We're a little rusty, but we're going to get the oil going and we're going to get it going and we're going to be back like we never left.
Man.
Tell me about
What's up,
it, bro.
George and Shon, man? How you brothers been? It's been a minute.
I'm good. I got my Michigan State mug, bruh. I'm good.
Yeah. One thing after another, we ain't complaining. We ain't complaining because complaining don't solve nothing. So we're going to keep it pushing. We're going to keep it moving.
Not at all. Not at all. Listen, Shon, I feel like you got a big announcement, right? Don't you got? Do we got a drum? I wish or something?
Bro, I wish I had some music. George is a maestro, like for real.
Oh.
Like George, I just want to tell you, we got a special guest coming on tonight. We got a special guest. We got a special guest coming on tonight.
Yo.
One more time for the studio audience. There it is.
That's go.
It right there.
Yo.
Man, tell us more, man.
Yo, I'm mad excited, man. This is as you can see, it says not for sale. Right,
yeah.
You see that, boy? Yeah, man. This is the proof, man. So this is the proof of the new book, Broken Boys Become Broken Men, man. I'm so excited and so stoked about this one, man. Like for real, bro. For real, I'm really excited, bro.
Shon, a little bit. I know this one. Can I say something? Like I know this one been on your heart for a minute, man. We've talked about it for some time and whatnot, and so forth to be here. Just tell me a little bit about how you feeling, like emotion, because I not only is this an educational tool, but I know this is a part of your journey. You know what I'm saying? And this is one thing that people don't understand. Like when we're on the healing journey, it extends. Like, you know what I'm saying? People just want things to be done, but like things like this, making people aware, sharing your story, that's all a part of it. So just tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about where you at now that it's here and it's about to be shared with the world, because I know it's like personally attached to you.
Yeah. Wow. No, man, I'm really I'm in a really good place, man, as a result of it, right? Because going through the journey of writing it really had me doing some more work. And so it's a big relief because, you know, like George, like for real, bro, like when it started, I was heavy, like, and I started this some time ago. And so where I am now, I'm in a totally different place and I can write this book. I was able to write this book from a position of being healed versus of writing from a position of being hurt.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Because I believe
the outcome is definitely going to be different from those two perspectives. So, you know, I definitely understand what you're saying.
Because when I started writing it, I was really, really hurt. And then now, where I am now is like, yo, I went through a lot of the journey. And so I was writing it through the lens through the perspective of being on the other side, but still not forgetting where it all started from.
Gotcha.
Shon, can you speak to us about the title? I mean, I find that that's a really interesting title. Where did that come from? Why did you pick it?
You know, you honestly, Cole, was a great motivator in this, right? Because you work with young men, right? And so, you know, just hearing the stories of the young men that you work with, and then looking at me working with the adults, And I'm like, yo, that's a connection, right?
Yeah.
So the men who I work with once were little boys. And so listen to your stories and how these young men, some of them are lost, some of them are found, right?
Yeah.
But the ones that are lost and they still make it to adulthood, they broken, right? And so I just wanted to speak to that concept, man, that broken boys become broken men when we do not meet them right where they are and help them navigate that process.
Yeah. Man. I'm inspired by that, man. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so, let's, if you don't mind, man, let's chop it up about that aspect, and what I can do, man, is just give you a couple of things that I've wrote in here, right? And we can just, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a risk, and I'm gonna just open it up anywhere, and I'm gonna just read the sentence. So I said, when a man struggles with releasing his inner child from past traumas or unfulfilled needs, it becomes exceedingly challenging for him to guide his own children through similar trials and embark on the path to healing. Instead of charting new courses, these men often resort to their personal experiences, directing their children to do as I say, not as I do. Kids, however, can spot the inconsistency between words and actions. They are shaped more profoundly by what we do than what we say. Right?
Ooh.
So, so when you think about that.
Yeah. I have not, in my years of practice, I have not seen one child, and I have children, my own biological children who have done therapy, and I have not seen one child who will come in, the parent be frustrated. Same thing happened with my experience personally. I don't understand why they do. Blah, 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 this and that. It's not been one where somewhere in there, it was not a reflection or imitation of the parent's behavior.
Yeah.
Some on a little scale, some on medium, and some on a larger scale. In the Black community primarily, and I say this all the time, and I catch heat every time I'm going to keep saying it, we are not taught, either directly or indirectly, that our children are little humans with little feelings, little emotions, little brains that need to be developed. We are taught by tradition and by culture and by action that our children are our property. And so we say things like, do as I say, not as I do. When in reality, a child is going to mimic the person or the people that they are around the most in some capacity.
Yep.
So let me say it a different way. If you acting a fool, the probability that your child is going to act a fool in certain situations, going to respond a certain way in certain situations, going to react a certain way in certain situations, is the probability is extremely high. Not because of what you said, but because of what you do.
That's good.
Yeah.
I love that that's in that book. Yeah. Your children, our children, my children, when I'm talking, I'm never talking to just the studio audience. I'm talking to myself. They are sponges.
That's good.
And they're watching when we think they're watching, but more importantly, they're watching when we think that they are not.
Yeah.
And you are the person that, whatever type of parents you are, in some capacity you're a protector, in some capacity you're a provider, in some capacity you are their caregiver, their guardian, to think that because you told them don't do this, when they seen you do this, it's absurd. It's asinine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't just keep passing the same ways or behaviors or traditions down because our children are our subordinates, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to need to do as much and sometimes more than what you say. And this is the last thing I'm saying because I feel like I'm rambling now. But what we do because we're adults and we've been developed and we've experienced some life and we've learned things like tact and different things like that. We're gonna do some things in moderation, but the things that adults do in moderation, children do in excess.
Mm-hmm.
Excess. They don't know when to reel it in, right? They haven't been. It ain't been developed. It hasn't been cultivated. They don't know when to stop. They don't know when enough is enough. They don't know what the limits and the boundaries and stuff that because they're learning all that now.
Yep.
So you pop off or whatever on somebody or something like that, and you know just how far to go. But they'll do it and they'll keep going because they're not there yet. And we have to be mindful of these things. Our children are not our property. They're not robots. They're not puppets. They're little humans with brains and feelings and emotions and behaviors, just like us.
Yeah.
Just like
and George, and George too. Um, you aren't saying all Black culture operates out of this mindset, right?
I'm saying in my experience is limited, but I'm saying in my experience, personally and professionally, it's pretty high.
Okay.
I'm saying it's pretty high. Like I throw a number out there, but I don't want us to get hate. No, I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. I would say 85, 90% from what I've seen. And my view is small. My view of the world, you know what I'm saying, is my view, but it's definitely prevalent in this part in these parts.
So, Shon, hearing that number from George, right? Can you speak to us a little bit about who are the people you wrote this for? Right? Can you
Yeah,
speak to that a little bit?
absolutely, absolutely. And so I wrote it for three different groups, Cole. So I wrote it first to the young boy um, that will experience some of these experiences that I have in a book. And so
Yeah.
it will give them instructions on what not to do and what to do,
Okay.
right? So that way they will have permission to
Mm,
be able to start the process of navigating their emotions and how they feel and how they view women and how they view conflict and how they come to a resolution. Secondly, I wrote it to men, right? Adult men who once was broken and now that is transitioning or that is in adulthood, that they can get to the last chapter in the book where it's called Unbroken. So that
mm,
way they can follow a blueprint or their pathway to become unbroken because they may be living in a condition that they deem as normal, right? It is normal because that's their reality. But through
right.
this book, I try to highlight stories and perspectives for them to consider. I say this, Cole, is that one of my interns, she did a study with some of our fathers, and there was 21 ACEs that she was looking for that she gave them on the paper, right? And when they went through it, the fathers that went through it, they the average was 10 and a half. They had 10 and a half of the trauma they experienced in their life out of the 21. Studies show that out of I think it was 75% of Americans in the United States experience one trauma. One. And here, this small population of 20 men
Yeah.
that she studied had 10 and a half,
Mm,
right? And so that was interesting. And so here, I want them to know that there's a way to navigate the trauma, right? And then thirdly, are women. The
okay.
third population was women for them to better understand that when he does what he do, that it came from somewhere, not a
Yeah.
justification, but I want to give them a perspective that this is where this came from,
Yeah.
and these are some things that we can do to try to help us support them. I give several stories on how my wife navigated my trauma when I was projected in on her and how she handled me to help me navigate through it to be able to come to a real conclusion. I didn't listen right away, but over time, I grew into the person who I am today. So those are the three demographics of people that I've targeted. So great question, man.
Yeah, well, this leads me to another question, right? Because I know several months ago we all participated in let me see, what is it? Single Mothers Raising Kings.
Yeah,
I'm
y'all.
hoping I got the title right. And there was a lot of conversation in that space around raising sons. Does this book is that audience? Can that audience use this book as well as it relates to sort of navigating their understanding of their own sons and how to even support their sons as they're transitioning into manhood?
Absolutely. I wish I would have had it done by that time, right? Because this would have been a gift that I would have gave to them for them to understand. And one of my favorite chapters, man, is chapter, I think it's chapter 4, it might be chapter 3. It talks about the mask we wear. And man, I break down the lion mask. I break down what's the other ones? Because we need the hyena, right? I got a hyena mask in here. I also got a turtle mask. So I go through these different masks that men wear, right? And so when mom is working with her son or she see her son, sometime he may be wearing a mask. What is that mask? Is it the hyena mask, right? And people are like, man, what the heck is the hyena mask? I just remember, the hyena mask when, that's that kid that you grew up with that was a good kid, right? But he feel like he has to fit in the group. And so he's laughing at everybody's jokes, right? Or he gets empowered when he's in the crowd. He's following the crowd, right? So everybody's throwing a rock. Guess what? Now he throws the rock because he want to fit in, right? He doesn't want it. Everybody's laughing and cracking jokes. He doesn't want the bully or the dude cracking jokes to crack jokes on him. So he's laughing, right? So he does what that crowd do, and he loses himself. He loses his identity. And I talk about a friend of mine who got caught up in that. And when we were by ourselves, he was one person. But when he was in another group, he was totally different. And me and my boys like, yo, who the heck are you, bro? Like every time you're around them, you totally different. That's not who you really are. Why? Because when he went around them, he put on this hyena mask.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hoo-wee.
Yeah. So I go through, I have probably about 12 of them, but I only put them 7 in this one because we're going to come back with a part 2 in this book, man. Yeah.
Man. Wow. So, I mean, this is big.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, I think this is big. Yeah. Yeah.
And needed. And I think we, as we talked about the Raising King brunch, I think the mothers that joined us were really, saying they have been looking because the questions and different things like that, you can tell they weren't necessarily spontaneous, but like they're going through their journey, and it's like, man, parenting in itself is not the easiest thing in the world. You know what I'm saying? But then when you're put in that situation, you know what I'm saying, where you're raising the opposite gender or whatnot, and it's like, how can you understand everything that's going on without someone else, coming in as a resource or different things like that? So I'm just glad that book will be available.
This brings us to a good point of what you just mentioned, George. Just here recently, we see in Chicago, unfortunately, that a young man lost his life, right? And the world is split, right?
Yeah.
You have the world is split because you have some people that is saying, and if you're not aware of it, right, in Chicago, there was a mother who was attacked by a young man who have 2 daughters. And some type of altercation took place in the restaurant, and it became very volatile, right? And so the young man, the video shows where the young man is squaring off on her, hitting her like she is a man, somebody that just hitting her profusely, right? And so it is, the video is there, and then somewhere in there, the mother, her son is there, 14 years old. He's seeing this man attack his mother. And for whatever reason, he had a gun on him, and he shot this man. and
It
not
was
only did it
hers.
shoot.
It was hers. It was legally registered.
Yeah,
It
but
was
I'm
the
just
it was
saying.
the mom.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so he took the gun and
Yep.
he shot this dude who was attacking his mother and killed him. And
Yep.
so you have the world one split. You have one side like, man, they should go to prison, and you have the other side saying that they did right. And so
Yep.
my point, just looking at
Is it self defense? I haven't had
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So the charges were dropped. They were arrested initially, and the
Okay.
charges were recently dropped. And now, Shon, we must got different timelines because you saying that the world is split, and so far I ain't seen nobody saying that they wasn't justified.
Yeah, I do. I see George. I see.
No, I believe you.
No,
I'm
I'm
just
with
saying
you. I definitely see more people saying he was justified, but I
Yeah.
do see quite a few people
Mm.
saying that the boy shouldn't have killed him. The boy didn't have to go that far, all that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so, but my point is not to even highlight the young man and mom. My thing is just thinking about the man who felt that it was okay
Yep.
to hit this woman the way that he did. And sometimes when I went a little further scrolling through on my timeline, this was on Twitter. So, you know, if you go do one thing, then it just keeps showing you the same thing or something similar. But on this timeline, once I saw that, I seen young man after young man after young man after young man hit on women. And it's just like, yo, what's really good? And most of these guys are all young men that I'm seeing where these young men think it's okay to put their hands on women. And so I want to make this last point and I want to hear from you guys. This go back to one of the masks that I talk about in the book, and it's the lion mask. The lion mask has this huge roar. He roars, look at me. I'm majestic. I'm strong. I'm this. I'm mighty. You better not mess with me. But behind that roar, for many of them, it's a little boy.
Yeah.
You projecting one thing. Oh, you fronted me off. And so my man, that's what he was doing in that restaurant. So now I'm backed in the corner like, man, I got to respond now because I'm talking all of this junk. Now I got to follow through what I've been promising. And so a lot of men are walking around with this lion mask. And I would really love to hear your perspective on the lion mask and, you know, even as it relates to what we experience.
We talk about this quite often whenever we're going somewhere to talk about, you know, men and mental health and different things like that. Like the only two feelings or emotions that accept them. Every human has a full, you know what I'm saying? Some is a little bit more distorted than others, but every human has a full spectrum of emotions. Whereas for a female or whatnot, there's a lot more that's socially accepted. Whereas for a man, the main two, you can aggression and anger. You can't be sad. You can't be scared. You know what I'm saying? You almost can't be happy. You know what I'm saying? Like all of those things give off, they don't give off because they're 100% natural, but society don't accept them as manly or masculine. And it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's the most, we always use this example. You're a little boy, you fall off your bike, boy, get up. You acting like a girl, you crying, get up. But a girl, you know, your sister fall off, she's baby. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's rushing to her aid. Are you okay? And that carries on right into manhood. You think about you get into middle school and then high school, the locker room talk. You can't show weakness. You can't show you have emotions for a female, or you can't show that you like somebody. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't. We can't. Let me say it this way: we can't breathe. we can't breathe. You know what I'm saying? Anything outside of anger or aggression is seen as weakness.
Yeah.
It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. But on the other hand, when these boys become men, all we hear about, I hear it all the time, is emotionally unavailable men.
Yeah.
That's because were told and forced directly and indirectly to suppress anything besides the wrong ones. And so this fella that we talking about, that he was what did he do? He could have probably talked her down. He could have ignored her. He could have bought her food. Is all these things, but where did he go?
Yep.
Anger and aggression.
So what are you seeing, Cole? Because you work with a lot of young men. Like, what are you seeing?
I think it's a spectrum, right? Because I think that it's a spectrum. I think that, and what I mean by a spectrum, I mean that not every boy who is socialized to become a man, who doesn't have an emotional vocabulary, become aggressive and wearing the lion's mask. And so I think it's a variation that is important for us to identify, because I think that it isn't. We sometimes have these blanketed ideas around boys who don't have all of these skills and these tools, and then we believe because they don't, then this is a one all narrative. And I think that there are degrees that come into play when it comes to talking about violence, when it comes to talking about not just violence, but violence against women, and all of the things that are associated with that. I also think too. I think that when we're talking about emotions and feelings and the socialization of boys, I feel like there's a different degree when we talk about black and brown men and when we talk about white men. And so I also think, and I think about that from the lens of boys that come from, most people like to say marginalized communities, or I can't even think of the other one, but I think resource savvy communities where people know how to survive in communities and have their internal resources. But I think that when we talk about young men that are coming from environments that the street is the institution of their level of understanding, I think that violence and aggression and hypervigilance are skills and tools to be able to survive in those environments. And so, part of me just often is asking the question, who are we talking about when we're talking about men and boys who are socialized to not be able to express themselves? Is this every male? I mean, I grew up in a resource savvy community that was the underbelly was poverty, but I grew up with seeing abuse and neglect and seeing men violently treat my mom, and feeling powerless. But I also didn't go out and attack or beat or harm women or anyone else in my space. And so I think it's an individualized thing too, because not everybody who comes from these spaces are. But this also leads me to a question too, that's centered back to you, Shon, and that's really: is this book primarily for Black and brown men, or is this book for all men? Can you speak to? Because some people will see your book and see your brown face on it and say, "Oh, okay, this book he's speaking to Black men."
Yep.
Right? But I'd love for you to talk about the spectrum of who the men are that you are talking about in your book.
Yeah. Just like our organization is happened to be led by a black man, but fatherlessness is across the board. When we look at the stats, when we look at the data that I look at is not saying black, it's not saying brown, it's not saying yellow, it's not saying white, it's just saying across the board. When it tells me that 65% of students who commit suicide come from a fatherless home. The latest data that came out from the last census said 92% of incarcerated men, watch this, have children at home. 92%.
Yeah.
So it's not saying white men, black men, yellow, brown. No. So my point to your question, no, broken boys become broken men. That's for all. White men, wealthy men, poor men, don't care which your demographic or what side of the fence you live on. I don't care if you're the CEO or whatever. Your son, if trauma has taken place and if it's not navigated or handled correctly, that trauma goes from that boy to eventually him becoming a man if it's not properly processed.
Yeah.
I tell the story in here, and you guys heard me say it. My daughter got suspended. When she come home, I help her navigate it.
Yeah.
Come to find out, she wasn't hurt by the people in the community or her in her class. She was hurt by her father. Her father told her to go and fight. Comes out through my introspection that my trauma from 13 years old was projected on my daughter to have her avenge my 13-year-old self. So this man who helps all of these men still had that broken 13-year-old living on the inside of him, trying to give instruction to his daughter.
Yeah.
So broken boys become broken men.
Shon, can we tell the studio audience who brought that to your attention?
Wow.
No, I was just because we want to like talk about resources and stuff. Like we want to
see.
No, it's a powerful story. It's a powerful story. I love it. I'm just saying, like, did you become aware on your own, or was there like a friend, or perhaps a
George is in the Shon? Just tell him it's in the book.
It's in the book. There you go. It's in the book to find out who told me, and I promise you, it's in the book. It's in the book who helped me come to that conclusion. Was it a friend? Was it me? Like I don't know how I came to that conclusion.
Y'all gotta get the book. Y'all gotta get the book.
It's in the book.
Gotta get the book.
It's in the book. It's in the book. It's in the book.
Was what I just did legit or not legit?
I know.
Not legit.
Not legit, bro.
Not legit. Not legit. I think that's all legit. Not legit. Not legit. Is what George just did, was that legit or not legit? You could put it in the comments for us. Let us know if it was legit or not legit.
I thought I was helping people. Please get the book. And I just want to reiterate, it's universal. Like there's no color barrier, there's no socioeconomic barrier. Broken boys become broken men. The title is so powerful and the title is so true. And as a person who worked in schools from kindergarten to 12th grade and then worked in prison with men as old as 80 years old, the title could not be more truthful and factual in our society. Yeah. Check the book. Get the book. Shon, real quick, you talked about the book, but talk about your dead box. I know we're a little bit over.
Yeah.
That comes with it.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited, man. Right. So we have about we only selling 50 of the dad box, and so in the box, man, you get a book, you get a T-shirt, you get a water bottle, you get 50. You get a little affirmation book with 50 fatherhood affirmations in there. So you get a whole thing for $69, man. I think it's $69 for all of those items, man. So. Listen, man, I'm just really excited about this piece. It was so much that I could have put in there. I just decided to stop because I know I will have to come out with a part 2, and that one I already got it. That one will be called Unbroken. So I already have it, but the first chapter starts off with instructions not included. And we end off with Unbroken. And I'll say this lastly, man. One of the hardest things that I had to do was I had to write letters in the book. And I wrote one to my mother, and I wrote one to my father, and I wrote one to myself. And those were really important to me, right? That I needed to just pour out to those 3 individuals. And I'm talking to myself in third party because it was important for me to speak to me, right? That we had to come to a conclusion. And the great thing about it, man, is that you get to participate because in those chapters, I challenge you to do the same thing. So I leave space inside the book for you to write letters to those individuals that you need to write one too. So yeah, man, I'm just mad excited, man. I'm mad excited.
So Shon, where can people pick the book up at?
Yeah, they can go to my website, right? They can go to shonhart.com, SHON Hart, HART.com, and it will be on all of the things that we do. They can go to all of the social media platforms, right? It will be on here to Facebook. Description will be in YouTube. It will be on Instagram. So everywhere you follow us and that you rock with us,
Yeah.
there will be a link for you to purchase it. So yeah, man, let's get this work, man.
Beautiful, beautiful. Shon, thank you.
Yeah, and welcome back, fellas. Right, man, feels
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. It feels amazing.
All right, till next time.
Yeah. All right, people.